This is the Sunkissed Podcast.
Welcome to the Sunkissed Podcast. Before I say anything else, I just want to say thank you for 25 episodes. Yes, our 25th episode. So once again, thank you so much. And if you've been listening from the start, you know I started with ranking the Halloween franchise. And today, I'm kind of going full circle again, but we're going to rank the Scream franchise. And to help me take a stab at it, please welcome from the Lizard and Panda Take on Cinema podcast, it's Liz. Liz, thank you so much for doing this.
Hi. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
So I guess before we get into the course of things, what got you into podcasting per se?
Oh, I like listening to podcasts a lot. Like constantly trying to find like new stuff just to listen to just like keep me entertained when on those very rare moments that I don't want to listen to music. I just want to listen to people talk about things I'm interested in. But I think because really, I just one day had a thought the whole, because, COVID, it gives you a lot of aspects to like think about where it's just like, I don't want the day-to-day life where it's just you go to work, you go home, you sleep kind of a situation. So I had contacted my best friend, Danny, who is the panda in this situation. And I was like, hey, do you want to do like a podcast where we just talk about movies? And he's like, absolutely, let's do it. And we just kind of like went off from there and then kind of flowed through. It wasn't really a thing where it's just like, okay, like we're going to become super famous. We're going to take off. It was just we're just going to do this to have some fun and see where it goes.
Yeah, I think the ones that do take off, it just happens organically,
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But that's kind of what I did. But it wasn't even COVID per se. It's just I kind of do still. I make music, but not as much as I used to. And I like to be creative in some way or fashion. And I kind of just woke up one day and said, I'm gonna start a podcast. And I never thought I'd do this before. This is something I never really thought about per se. But since I've started it, like my close friends that have listened are like, hey, I think this is your calling. Like your music's really good, but this is like great. Like we really enjoy it. Oh, we have a special guest. Yay.
Yeah, it's my cat Marbles.
It's all good.
Buddy.
Every so often my dog likes to come in and make an appearance. So, that's, so what would you say your favorite genre movies are?
Oh, 100% horror.
Or like suspense. Like, like I think there's categories to it. Like I like suspenseful horror movies.
I would probably say when it comes to like horror movies, oh my God, stop. At the end of the day, probably the ones that I love the most are the suspenseful, like that don't really rely on the jump scares. It's more like you're kind of sitting there waiting for something to happen, but nothing really does. So then when the jump scene does happen, I'm like jumping off the couch, like freaking out. I definitely say that those are my favorites. But at the end of the day, when it comes to horror, I love each category of it for its own reason. So I love my slashers with Freddy, Jason, Michael. I love the suspense. I love the demon ones like the Conjuring movies.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I love them all. And then obviously there are moments where I'm like, why am I watching this?
Yeah, there's been a lot of movies like that look good. And then I started watching it. It's like, oh, this completely sucks.
Yeah. And those are always the really disappointing ones.
Yeah, like I went and seen the Paranormal Next of Kin or the New Generation or of Kin. I don't know. And it was just sucked. Sucked. And it's crazy because like the very first Paranormal is in my top 5 movies of all time, just because it had that realistic feel to it. It's right up there with the Blair Witch Project to me when it comes to this. Seems like this is real life. They did a really good job of not breaking that wall. Like,
Yeah.
but it is.
And it's funny because I can't stand the Paranormal Activity movies.
Not even the very first.
Nope. I remember
Wow.
seeing it in theaters, so excited because so many friends of mine were like, I haven't been scared by a horror movie in years. And it scared the whatever off of me. Like, and I'm just so excited, like, oh my God, maybe something will finally scare me again. And I'm just sitting there like,
It scared me just because like the actors weren't the greatest, but they seemed real. Like it just seemed like natural people. Right. And after that, even like the second one, like they were way over the top with like the acting and the writing and everything. Like they should have just made that one movie and just like been done with it.
Yeah, just stick for here. I'm also not a big fan of found footage movies.
Yeah.
Like I like the Blair Witch Project for its time, and that basically started it all. But like at the end of the day, when it comes to found footage movies, I kind of like lose interest. And then a lot of times I just find myself yelling at the TV, like, put down the camera and run.
Yeah. 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 Like you said, the Blair Witch was a movie that came out in the 90s, right?
Yeah, like
late
1999,
90s.
I think.
Yeah. And it in that camcorder, it was just so spooky. But also I grew up in the woods. So like, it had a deep connection with me of like, if I'm gonna go out in these woods, I'm gonna get lost. I'm gonna get lost in my own woods. Like
and then who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah, I'm gonna end up in a corner of a shack. So the Blair Witch to me was the very first movie as a kid that like scared the shit out of me. Just because
Yeah,
I was one of the first.
Yeah, and especially living in the woods, I can imagine that would freak me out too.
So who would you say your favorite slasher is?
Freddy.
Okay.
Can't even miss a beat. Just Freddy. Robert Englund is one of my favorites. And just, because originally he was supposed to be the quiet one, like Jason and Michael. But then they decided to take that turn of like him speaking and having like all this just like really like one-liners that I always love so much that I always remember. And it was one of like the first slashers that I watched.
I'm actually in the process of watching all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies because I want to do an episode like that with that at some point. The thing with Freddy is the very first movie was terrifying. He was terrifying. But as the movies progressed, he became too comedic. Like his one-liners weren't scary. They were kind of cheesy. And I don't like that. I know some people love that, but I didn't because it's not scary to me at that point. Like outside of the first movie, so far, the only one I really have enjoyed from start to finish is the New Nightmare. Just because of how different it was of
like the remake.
No, it's Wes Craven's new.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Yeah. Okay, I was like, oh my God, no.
No. I think the new one could have been good if they didn't use so much CGI and like the guy wasn't terrible, and he was actually a little more scary than the Freddy of what I remember. But I feel like they just tried too much with the visuals. It had a lot going for it. It's like the Texas Chainsaw franchise. Every movie had something going for it, but they just fucked something up in the process.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had watched the new Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I was like, "Oh, wow!"
It was fun, but like, and there was a couple like the cinematography wasn't terrible.
Oh, I thought the cinematography was beautiful in that movie. I was just like, I don't know, the writing wasn't really a fan.
I don't know. It seemed like whoever wrote that, like after Halloween 2018 came out, they're like, I know what we're gonna do.
Exactly. They just literally did like a play-by-play of Halloween.
I think they're gonna do a Halloween Kills because he's going back to the original house.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it being anything original per se.
Yeah, no. And they didn't even have the same actress who played Sally in the first movie. It's someone
Nah.
completely different.
But I think the next one is going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to be like him versus like 50 rednecks, and he's just going to like have a fucking heyday with them.
I would watch that.
Because I hope they bring the tunnels into the equation, right? Like,
Mhm.
I want to see some scenes of them like walking above Leatherface, and then him just like coming out from the ground and like chopping their
Mhm.
feet off, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like I like the kill scenes in that movie as well. It was just all in all, just some of the stuff I was just like, okay. Like the whole bus scene specifically comes to mind where I was like, oh my God.
Brutal. It was brutal.
I love the scene, but like the whole like bringing up the cell phones, being like, do anything, you're canceled. And I'm like, oh my God.
But that's what it would be like today. No one's smart enough to call for help. They want to
And
get it
that's
on
the
film.
Oh, and that's the sad part. I'd be like, and I'm out. Goodbye. Adios.
Yeah,
And I would just turn and run.
Before I watched it, I had friends that like texted me. They're like, yo, they actually did good with the suspense. So I went into this thinking, oh, there was no suspense. No consistency with Leatherface's character in
No.
terms of like his strength. Like there were scenes where he was supernatural, and then there were scenes where he struggled with
Mhm.
stuff. And it's like there's no consistency. And then the scene towards the end where like they get his chainsaw and they barely uppercut him, and you think that's gonna kill him, and oh no, it's just like, man, if you're gonna grab the chain, I thought she was gonna cut his head off or something. I thought it was gonna be live by the sword, die by the sword. And then when I seen that, I'm like, oh, he ain't dead.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
because like that's what you're supposed to do. And then, oh, by the way, it's clearly late at night that the whole scene happens. And then, very obviously, hours later, the sun is way up. That's when they decide to leave in the self driving car. So, of course, Leatherface had plenty of time to get up and come after them. So I was just like, you should have left like hours ago, dudes. I don't know why
Yeah.
you stayed.
Yeah, it's something a little like the movie had a lot of potential, but it was just bad. I think they went through like two writers, or like one writer, or two directors. Like
Oh, yeah.
the first director either got fired or quit halfway through the movie, and I think you can tell. Like I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
Sally was added. Like I feel like that was added footage to what they had. I don't know. It was just a train wreck.
Yeah, no, it, I don't regret watching it. I really try not to regret many movies that I watch, but I was at the same time like, oh, this is not that great. Not worth it.
No, I don't regret watching it at all either. Like I said, when things were finally happening, like it was fun. But that's pretty much it. But I guess the main course of our podcast, let's get into the debate, I guess. So what do you have? So what I did from worst to best. That's how my list is made out. So what do you have at number 5?
Number 5, I have Scream 3.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. You can definitely tell that things were changing and they were kind of losing their, I feel like, heart with the movie. And then they had a different writer come in, and no, I just was not a fan of that one at all.
Yeah. The thing that I thought was only good thing with that, because like the next movie was terrible, was the opening scene with Cotton. Like,
Oh,
yeah. Well, he's driving through traffic, and like they call him, and like I don't know, like Scream to me has always been one of the best with opening scenes to start the movie. And that was one of the only things I liked about the movie. I didn't like the whole brother thing. I thought that was kind of a reach. I thought the whole thing was kind of cheesy, having the actors have actors.
yeah. And not only that, but like you could tell that they were put in the direction of like the actors themselves were overacting playing
Yeah.
their characters. And it was just kind of like it felt too forced to me.
Like that one scene where like before the house blows up and they're, I gotta go read what it says.
Oh
Uh,
God.
uh.
Yeah, that scene was pretty bad. I was just like, no, just leave. Just leave. Just go.
Okay. Yeah. So that was number 5. Okay. So what do you have at number 4?
Number 4. Oh,
I got the new one at number 4. So why do you got number 4 at number 4?
and honestly, it's funny because it was the top 4 that had me like struggling with what I wanted to do because I was just like off the bat, I know what number 1 is, I know what number 5 is, but like when it came between that part, I felt like 4 was definitely making a comeback compared to what we got in 3, and I feel like it helps that they had so many years in between before coming out with that one. And I like the changes that they made and things that they added in. It didn't feel too forced like it did with the whole brother scenario in the third one. Um, and it was hard to choose from. And like I also like Emma Roberts a lot. She plays the bitch really well in anything that she does because she plays a lot of bitchy characters.
Yeah.
But I just think at the end of the day, like it was more so that I liked the other movies better.
Yeah. I don't know. Like for me, the one that came out, I love the cinematography in this. I feel like we had some of the best cinematography. I can't speak that we've had in the franchise and in the new one. I like some of the most brutal kills were in this, but like I didn't like the writing. I feel like it was weak in terms of how everything was brought back. I didn't like how they killed Dewey.
What did you
'Cause
want it to be like more brutal?
I did. I wanted Gail to die in that movie. If I'm being honest,
Oh, okay.
I wanted Dewey to be pissed off in the next one, but it is what it is. But like, I did, but I don't know. It's just going from 4 and seeing Dewey be sheriff, and he's in a big house and he's happy, and then like Flash, he's in a trailer. He probably got fired. He's an alcoholic, and like, I just too much of a 180 from movie to movie. And also I didn't like the supporting cast outside of like the big 3 and Billy's daughter. I
Mhm.
didn't like the other actors in the movie. It was just something I wasn't invested in what else was going on in the movie outside of those 4 characters.
Right. So I had to look down because like earlier today, I like wrote down actors' names and all their characters because I have such a horrible memory that I was like, I'm gonna need to write these down because if I don't, I'm gonna kick myself later. Because I liked a lot Jenna Ortega's character. She played Tara, the little sister. I liked her a lot, and I like a lot of the stuff that she's in. I feel like she's becoming like an up and coming actor that we're getting, specifically in the horror genre.
Yeah. She wasn't bad, but like it's just I think it's the writing. So I can't put it on the actors. I want to put it on the writers because they didn't do it, even though she had the opening scene, which was probably one of the best opening scenes since the original. But like it was just I wasn't invested. And it's not hard for me to get invested. I just need like a 5-minute backstory. But
Mm.
like I didn't get any of that. It's just like, oh, well, I'm the sister of the daughter who is Billy Loomis's daughter. And, it's like, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, like, because I've only seen it twice now. Like, I saw it once in theaters when it came out. Like, I think it was like a few days after it came out. And I really liked it. And now seeing it again, I was like, I really like this movie. And I'm surprised that I like it so much.
Yeah, I've watched it twice and it's not something that like I can watch it again if I have to, but it's not gonna be like if I'm trying to introduce someone to the Scream franchise, I'm not going for that movie, you know. So that's my thing with it. What did you have at number 3?
5.
Okay. This is where it got hard because this spot here, it changes almost day to day for me, depending on what mood.
Mhm.
This is where it got hard for me. And this is where I know people are going to be very upset. But at number 3, I got Scream 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's on my list of sequels that don't suck.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It could have easily been number 2 some days. Like I said, depending on what mood I'm in and what I want to watch. I don't have anything bad to say about the movie except for the singing in the lunch hall. I didn't like that. A lot of daytime stalking in this movie, which I thought was very interesting. And the way they killed Randy in a very non-dramatic way, like I get it, like he's upset with he's like, you'll never be the lead boy, and he was just so upset. But like just to pull him in a van, like, I don't know. If you're gonna kill Randy, you gotta give him something cooler than that.
Right. No, I see what you mean by that one. And it's like with Scream 5, I liked the fact, like a lot of people complain about the fact that it was really predictable, which I agree, but I feel like that was the point of the movie. And just like I loved the kill scenes in it. I felt like a lot of them were really creative. I liked a decent amount of the writing, like the twins specifically. I loved them. And I like the fact that they're like related to Randy and they are a part of the original cast, basically, because that was the whole point. It was just like, okay, we're bringing characters that are directly or indirectly related to the previous movies and the beginning of the start of it all. And I like that aspect a lot. Wasn't really a fan that it was the boyfriend again that was the killer. I was like, could we have picked somebody else and
Yeah.
not repeat the boyfriend?
Yeah, and the way that it was with the boyfriend too, it was just like it was so obvious from the start. He was too clueless.
Right. And like all of a
And
sudden super obsessive with the movies.
um and the only thing that kind of surprised me was the female who was the other killer. It did, but it didn't. Like when she shot, you know, the one that they really try to make us think that one chick was the other killer.
Mm-hmm.
But it was too obvious that it wasn't just because of how they were trying to do it. I don't know. I
I
think that
also
was
just
my
didn't.
big issue.
I didn't like her
with 5.
character.
Yeah.
Like she got on my nerves. So I was just like,
Yeah, but I just think that was my big issue with 5, just having, like you said, it be too obvious of things. But
mhm.
I think they did that. So I think Scream 6 is going to be something different.
Yeah.
Because
And honestly, I'm not surprised like that it was Dewey who was killed, only because I think out of all of them, he somehow made it alive every single time with how many times he's been stabbed and attacked, where I was just like, okay, he has to die. Like out of all of them, I'm like, his just makes more sense where he's had too many close calls. It was like Glenn in The Walking Dead.
The character development with Dewey, every movie was a different side and different face of Dewey, right? I think the fans of the 3 characters, the main characters, I think the fans were more invested in Dewey than the other 2, just because, like you said, of what he's went through. And then, like, every movie, he's a different form of himself. And that's something that I feel like Scream did well, except for the next one. Number 2, what do you have at number 2? Scream 2.
Scream 2.
Yeah, that
I wonder
was
what the first one is.
Scream 4. And for me, it's like this was one of the ones that I couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure out who the killer was. There for the longest time, I thought it was the blonde. I can't remember her name. Please forgive me. I'm bad with names.
Hayden Panettiere's character, Kirby.
Yeah, I thought it was Kirby.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, no, it can't be. Then I thought it was somebody else. And then I'm like, no. Then I thought it was somebody else. And it was just, this is one of the ones I couldn't figure out who the killer was. And that is something I enjoy. And even as I rewatch it and I look for clues, I can't figure it out still.
Hmm.
The only thing I don't like about this is how the underutilized Dewey compared to the others. He didn't have too much of a big role in this. He didn't say a whole lot. The couple of things I don't like, it's the worst opening in the franchise.
Hmm.
With the it shows like an opening of an opening, and then it's like, oh, these movies are too predictable, and it's just like, I don't know. This was one of the worst openings for the franchise, but and also like the blonde who was in 5, the one that took over for the sheriff in 5, that was like totally obsessed with Dewey.
Oh God, she got on my nerves. I was
Yeah,
happy she died in the 5.
yeah. I wasn't, because it was a completely different character. You know, it wasn't the blonde who's like very upbeat and loud, and it was that's one of the only things I didn't like. I know a lot of people have issues with how the film looked with the camera or whatever filter they put on the movie. They're like, it
Yeah.
looks too smidgy. I didn't get that at all. I mean, I liked how it looked. And the motive behind it made sense to me, with her cousin, cousin
Yeah.
being one of the killers. And Scream 4 to me was one of the only ones that still has me on edge when I watch it, because I'm still trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, like still trying to figure out like how this clues leads to this and stuff like that. And I definitely agree. The motive is definitely really cool. I like that aspect of like, I want to be famous. And that was one thing I did have a problem with also 5 as well. Is the motive was kind of like, all right, a little weird. But
But
that's meta fans nowadays. Like, because let's be realistic, a lot of like fans nowadays, you have the gatekeeper fans and all those ones where it definitely called them out. But I did like the motive. I did like the twist that they had, because I couldn't figure that out either. I was just like, wow, I did not see that coming. All right.
and I know there was a lot of cheesy moments in Scream 4, but it wasn't like over the top. Like, it was actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like when that one sheriff who got killed, the
Hold on.
he's done a lot of comedy.
Anthony Anderson's character or
Mhm.
Adam Brody?
Probably Anthony Anderson. Is he the older one, a little heavier set?
Yes.
Yeah. Like when he died, I thought it was funny what he
Fuck
said.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah. But like, it was just like, they're like, it was cheesy, but it wasn't like, come on. Like, it was actually like, that's actually funny.
Yeah. I feel like Scream 3 was that was the ridiculous cheesiness, where like Scream 4, it kind of brought it back, where it was cheesy, yes, but it was still on the funny side. It was executed well.
Yeah. And that's one thing that that's probably the only reason why it's at number 2 opposed to the second one. And also just the revealing of the killer too in the 4th was a little different than others. And then at number 1, at least we agree. Boom. So
it is the one that started it all.
And it was great. Like, there's been ones that have started things and it's like, but like, and such genius promoting on Wes Craven to have Drew Barrymore and then like promote her and then like kill her in like 5 minutes. And such genius to this movie. And like you said, it started it all. I didn't know. I kind of figured Billy was the killer, because like he always looked too calm, like he looked too cold at some, in scenes, especially in like in the in the video store.
Oh yeah, when like
That's when like
Brandy and
is like flipping out, and he's like, "Don't you guys not get it?" Like I knew he was the killer after that. And for Stu, right? Is that the thank you.
yeah, Matthew Lillard's character.
Yeah. For him being the second one, I was very confused. I wasn't expecting that. I think a lot of people were expecting him to be in the fifth movie.
Yeah, my one friend has made it very clear she's extremely disappointed that he was not in the new movie.
But I think they're doing that on purpose because I think he will be a solo Ghostface in the next one.
Yeah. My only thing is that, okay, he was stabbed a bunch of times, was dying from how many times he was stabbed. And then his face was crushed by a TV. So I'm kind of like, granted, I'm not in the human medical field. So it's like, I don't really know how that stuff works. I don't know if it's possible or not, depending on how fast you get to the hospital. But could you really survive that?
They never made it clear that he died in any of the movies, though. They never because he talked about deaths of other characters in their friend group or from that night, and they never really clarified that he's dead. But I know, I think so. From my understanding, though, the next one, Sid said she would not do it if they were going to kill her off. But in my head, you kind of got to kill the final girl in these movies. And I hate people are like, oh, she's the best final girl of all time. Like, she ain't no Jamie Lee Curtis. She's not Jamie Lee. But but if people say that, I can't argue. Like, when you think of Scream, you think of her, like that's.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, I do love Sidney Prescott because she is such a badass. My favorite at the end of the day is Nancy, because she like literally home alone Freddy, and she came up with this whole intricate work of trying to get him and try to take him down. Where a lot of the other girls, like, because that was in the very first movie that she was just like, no, this is all I'm going to do, and we're going to take him down. Where everybody else kind of, always just run away and scream. But at the end of the day, I feel like they all have their own way that makes them special. Like Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic. Neve Campbell is fantastic. Like, pretty much all of them have like their own special way of being the badass final girl.
I think the reason to me that sticks out with Jamie Lee is maybe because of the time jump of generations, right? Like, she was in the 78 film. Then she left after the second film for a while. Then he brought her back in H2O, which was 20 years later. And that's a whole nother generation of film watchers and just films in general. That's when when H2O came out, that's when the whole horror movie thing kind of changed, and how they were made and how they were shot and written. And then then I don't count Halloween Resurrection. She has like a 2-minute scene, whatever. But let's just cancel this. And then probably 10 years later, after more than 10 years, you have Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
Now you got a whole nother generation of watchers.
Yeah.
She's the only one that has stood the test of time. And, and I'm sure, that Sidney Prescott could, but I don't think they'll make Scream movies 40 years from now. Like, that's one franchise I feel like they're not going to drag out. That you can only do so much, but yet people have said about Halloween, like, why do we have 12 movies? It's Michael Myers. That's why.
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to Hollywood, and they will do whatever they can to make money. And my biggest problems is that there's no original ideas anymore. Or they're very rare anymore to find. Because I know like Danny had mentioned the other day how Chris Pratt is saying like Jurassic World, this third one coming out is going to be the final one of the Jurassic Park franchise. And I'm like, for now,
Yeah.
give it a few years.
And that's the thing with this. In terms of Blumhouse and Gordon Green, this is the last installment for them. And the thing is, these movies have been so good. I don't want anyone else fucking it up after this. Let's just put it to bed. Let's give us a video game. You gave Jason his own video game.
That's true.
Why can we not have? And Texas Chainsaw is in the process of the video game dropping. I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but it looks really good. So
I haven't. But I because I'm pretty sure I saw recently that Kane Cotter, who played Jason, is going to be doing the voice of Leatherface. I feel like I saw that somewhere. Which I'm like, okay, that's cool. He is one of my favorite Jasons. So
yeah, I typically I don't have a favorite Jason, but I will say the one who played in probably the worst one of all time, Jason Goes to Hell. Besides Jason X, right? Jason X is one we don't count. Let's just like he was very menacing in that one. And the guy who played in Freddy versus Jason was pretty good. I think that's probably my favorite Jason of them, just the way he looked and the way he moved and even the expressions, even though Jason has a mask, like the tilts and
it's all about the body language.
Yeah, like his expressions were right on point. And the guy who did the remake was really fucking good too. There's like that movie was not bad. I just didn't like how quick the transition from Baghead Jason to hockey mask Jason.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I have my like list of horror remakes that I like, and I really do love the Friday the 13th remake.
That's probably the second best. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what the first would be.
I mean, would you count Halloween 2018 as a remake or no?
Not really. I kind of see that as its own thing.
Okay.
Honestly, probably maybe my number one favorite like horror remake would probably be The Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Because I thought that one was really well done. I was very surprised how much I love that one. Because I'm also a huge Evil Dead fan.
Because I know Rob Zombie tried to have a whole reboot of Halloween and a whole remake of the franchise, and he completely shit on it. Like, the first one wasn't terrible. It had good moments. Then the second one, like, he had full creative control. Like the first one, he had to stay in the guidelines of what the studio wanted him to do. Right. But if it was up to him, the first one would have been a lot like the second one. So like the second one seemed too much like a Friday the 13th, like listening to Your Dead Mommy. Like,
yeah.
Like what? Like, bro, like, no. And then he's a homeless Viking. Like the dude looks like a Viking and he talks in the movie.
Yeah. Where
that was always one word, but still. And he better not fucking do it in the new one. He better not fucking do it in the new one.
No, like there are a few that they just don't talk, and that's Leatherface, Jason, and Michael. I don't think that any of them should talk. They should all just. The most Leatherface is allowed to do is his mumbles, like his random whines and mumbles that he does.
And the only noise we got from Michael was the grunt when he got his fingers blown off, and that's fine. Like,
yeah, I mean that's fair. Like if my fingers blew off, I'd be saying a lot more than a grunt.
Yeah, but like, but I don't know. Like Halloween is definitely not like the Rob Zombie film is not even close to a good remake. I don't know. But what movies are you excited for this year? There's a few, and there's one that's rumored to be coming out soon, and kind of excited if it's true. But
there's already movies that I also really anticipated coming out that has come out and that I loved. Like, I absolutely love the Batman. I don't know if you can tell that he's kind of just chilling back there.
I did a podcast with Intolerant podcast about that, and that movie was good. There was
Mhm.
I could have went without Catwoman. I feel like that was a lot of footage I didn't care about. But everybody else was great. I'm excited to see the next one.
Yeah, like I was super excited for that. I was trying not to be super excited because I know DC movies have been very disappointing for me. But that one I loved. I loved the new Doctor Strange movie.
I went and seen that and I was confused. My date that I brought with me, she is a super nerd when it comes to these movies. And she's like, no, you gotta watch like a series and like 3 movies before. I'm like, that explains. But the visuals were cool,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and because I'm really at the end of the day, like comic books, movies, books, music, like that's my life. So like, I mean, my entire sleeve on my arm is all Batman because I'm a big nerd when it comes to him. But like the movies coming out now, probably as of right now, my most anticipated one is probably Nope by Jordan Peele.
There you have
I'm
it.
so excited.
The one I'm anticipating, and it's not even confirmed yet, but I think behind the scenes it's about finished, is the new Jeepers Creepers.
I did hear about that. I have my feelings on the
The th-
franchise of
The
Jeepers
third
Creepers.
one was terrible.
Yeah, like there's some things that came out about the director slash writer of the movie that I was kind of like, all right, I don't really want to support you anymore. So I still like Jeepers Creepers, at least the first 2 for what they are. I do want to see the new Jeepers Creepers, but it really depends on if he's involved or not. If he is, then I'll just wait till it comes out somewhere else. Or if he's not, then I'll probably see it in theaters.
Yeah, it's not. It's like Sharknado to me. It's so bad I have to watch it. So bad it's good. Like it's not. They're not great movies. They're not terrible, but like like the second one, like if that came out today, it would borderline get canceled for that one scene where they're on the bus and he's having them all moved, and he gets to the dark kid and he licks the window, and then it's
Yeah.
like he's like, I want you, and it's like, bro, like that movie came out today, people would lose their shit. Like,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
and that's one thing I hated after Halloween Kills. Like there was a article I read saying Michael is homophobic.
Oh, I saw that. And I'm like,
It's like, come on.
That's stupid. If you have a
Why-
pulse, he's going to cut it off. Like,
Yeah. Why are you guys trying to ruin Halloween for me? Like, if
my only thing was
anything-
that they kept calling each other Big John and Little John, like in their house.
Yeah.
That was my only thing. I'm just like, just call each other John or Johnny. Why do you have to specify Big John, Little John?
It's like, and if anything, he showed he had compassion. He killed them and then he placed them in each other's arms, like the photo.
That is true.
It's like, if anything, he felt bad for him.
No, that's definitely a good point. I completely forgot about that too. I think like when I paused the movie, I was like,
It's like,
it was right after they were killed.
you're in my house. I got to kill you, but like,
Sorry.
here's what I can do.
Yeah.
And no. So it's like, that's one thing I try not to read too much after movies come out, because there's a lot of people are going to make something of nothing. And it's almost scary to think about, like, if like even me having a podcast, I don't watch what I say, but like when I edit it and I listen back, like there's certain things and certain episodes I say, I'm like, man, like I might need to edit this because someone might take this the wrong way.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way too. When I'm editing the podcast, I'm like, maybe I should fix this one just in case.
But then I think, like, nah, fuck it. Like, nah, like if you want to cancel me, I'll just make another one. Like,
yeah. No, that's fair. And I mean, like for me, with the movie Nope, I'm I've been loving Jordan Peele's work so much. Like, I know when I first heard about Get Out, I was kind of like, Jordan Peele and horror? Like, I was very confused because I've only ever seen him in comedy. So, and I had no idea that he was a horror fan. So I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. But then once I watched Get Out, I was absolutely creeped out the entire time. And I thought it was amazing. Us, I loved not as much as Get Out, but I still absolutely loved it. And then Nope just looks, I'm like, are we getting aliens now? Like, I have no idea what's going on. The trailer barely shows anything.
Get Out to me. So before I say anything, everyone has their own flavor of ice cream, right? Some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla, some people like strawberry, whatever. Get Out to me was a little bit overhyped and overrated, in my opinion. It was just too much story and not enough stuff. Like, I like seeing cool stuff. Like, I'm a visual guy. Like, I like flames and people's heads getting chopped off and blood squirting and, or just something cool. And that film had a few moments that were cool, but it was just too much backstory with the family. And, oh yeah, we've been here for ever. And then they're selling them. And it's like, okay, they're slaves. Like, and this, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
like I probably need to rewatch. I've watched it twice, and I'm like, I don't think because I tried to like it. I really did. Like, it's not one I just watched once. I'm like, yeah, never again. I really tried to like it, so I watched it again, and I still had the same feeling. But time has passed, and I've seen a lot worse films since then. So maybe if I rewatch it, I can get a newfound appreciation for the film. And that's happened.
Yeah.
Like Freddy versus Jason. I used to hate it.
I loved it from the get-go. That's one of my favorites. Just because it's one of those, it's so bad, it's good.
I thought it was cheesy and trying to overly explain that Freddy drowned Jason and how they got brought into the world for a whole 10-minute fight scene. We watched like an hour and 20 minutes of boring film for a 10-minute scene. Like, I don't know. So besides Freddy versus Jason, who else would you have like fight each other?
Oh, I say this all the time because I wanted more. I wanted more of like this one versus this one. What? Because I think at one point we were talking about like Pinhead versus Candyman.
Okay, like the supernatural shit.
Yeah.
That would be. Yeah.
And then what I would think was funny is Leprechaun versus Chucky.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this guy and Leatherface.
Yeah, the two like silent types.
Very brutal and but how would you have Michael be transported to some prison driving through Texas and then like the van like crashes and
Yeah, I feel like that would be for that scenario, that would probably be better just because with the whole Freddy waking up Jason and using like his nightmares to wake him up, it made sense for who Freddy was and what he did.
And when you think of prisons, you think of Texas has like these maximum like 5-star prisons if you're like on death row, right? Like Michael could be going to death row and going through Texas and they hit a cow like they did or something,
Yeah, it was a cow. Yeah, because with Texas, like, I think of kind of like the Green Mile or Shawshank Redemption, like those kind of prisons with the high walls and the what are they called? I'm like spacing on the name. The spiral spikes at the top.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I feel like that it would make more sense in some sort of like supernatural way, like the way that Freddy and Jason were.
Yeah, I just think the face off would just be like like I think Michael looking at someone else with a mask and like I think the face off would be something to be seen. But did you watch the fan made Jason versus Michael Evil Emerges on YouTube?
Yes, but I don't fully remember it. It's been a while.
It wasn't bad. There's been a lot of good fan made films I've watched on YouTube. Like the Halloween Inferno series is good.
Mhm,
And then like a month ago, they had Scream Legacy.
mhm.
If
I
you
did see
haven't-
that. Yeah.
Like there's a few gems on YouTube, but most of them are very low budget. And it's like, oh, this is bad. This is real bad.
Well, it's like they can do what they can. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like more like music videos, but my favorite will always be the Slash Street Boys. Every Halloween, they always pop up. Exactly. That just makes my heart happy every single time that comes out every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that the I'll Kill You That Way was just brilliant. That was
Yes.
just brilliant.
Definitely well thought out.
So what does your house look like around Halloween? Like for me, it's like a whole month of me being excited. Like as soon as October hits, I'm like this house looks like it's gothic and emo. Like it's amazing.
So when my husband and I lived in an apartment, I will say once we had moved in and October rolled around, the entire apartment was decked out in Halloween. And we lived there for 2 years, and it stayed that way for 2 years. And I promised my husband, because right now we're in between houses right now, trying to figure out how to get one of our own. But we made a deal where the outside of the house, October hits, it'll be completely decked out. But once October's over, we'll take everything down and it'll look normal again. But then the inside, I told him flat out, it's just like no matter what, I don't care. Like the inside of the house will be just Halloween all year round.
Yeah. I used to be like that, and I started dating, and they don't like it. And it's like, it's like I don't want to come home and see a 6-foot cutout of Michael in the corner every night. It's like, okay, I can.
It's not Michael, but sorry, my place is a mess.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and that's the type I actually had. It's not like the cardboard. It's like the actual like figure. And
Yep. Yeah, that's my Grim Reaper that stays up all the time, no matter what.
And sometimes it scares the shit out of me if I forget. It's like, oh shit. He and like the way it is like I'll put my jacket on him. So like Michael's like always holding my jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, my husband's known me since I was like 16 years old, so he knows how I am. He knows that I've been like that, like emo goth girl my entire life. So he's kind of just like, all right, I just have to accept that we're gonna have a bunch of random stuff. Like Sam over there from Trick or Treat is just chilling in the corner.
That's dope.
Yeah, he kind of just accept it.
I kind of got someone completely opposite, but I think that's why it's worked. It's just it's
Hey,
like
sometimes it works for the better.
attract, and there's things she does I can't get with, and there's things I do she doesn't get with, but we don't try to force each other to like it. It's just like that's who she is, that's who I am. I'm trying to convert her a little bit to where like after Halloween, it's like, can we at least keep it up till like New Year's? Let's keep the house like this till after Christmas.
I mean, because there's always Nightmare Before Christmas.
But
it's still there.
She is like last Halloween, she was counting down the hours to midnight, and then she was taking everything down and putting Christmas stuff up. It's like, oh boy.
It's like, oh, all right, I'm not really ready, but okay.
Yeah. So, well, I that's pretty much all the questions I got. We kind of went off track a little bit, which is okay.
It happens.
Yeah. Do you have any questions before we sign off, or?
Yeah, I mean, because I know that you said that you're generally like with your podcast, you're kind of like you don't stick to one specific thing, which I can definitely appreciate because it's hard to just stay in one topic. But do you have like any like favorite topics that you usually generally like to talk about?
Slashers, not even movies, but just like slashers and this guy behind me.
Hmm.
I love combat sports as someone who used to fight and whatnot. It's like anything UFC or like boxing, that's up my alley. Uh, I also love to talk to like relationship counselors and like life coaches and stuff because it's like I got no issues in my life when with that stuff. But you know, it's great to talk to certain professionals and pick their brain because you can learn and know how to avoid certain situations by talking to these certain people. Yeah, I don't have a favorite really.
Yeah.
Besides, it's just anything I'm curious about is what I try to get. And you know, the way that I found you, I seen I think it was Instagram. Yeah, and you posted something and I checked out the page and I commented on something else. But like 90% of the people I interview, I get a hold of like I did with you. I'll comment, see if I get it, you have a response, have a little conversation in the chat, and then
Uh-huh.
like go from there, you know,
Yeah.
see, you know, what's the worst that can happen? Like
Yeah.
that's how I got like Daniel Farrens. And I never, like my second ever episode, I talked to the guy who made Halloween 6. You know,
Oh,
it's like,
that's awesome.
yeah, that's crazy. Like he was so cool.
Yeah.
So, um, I got big plans for this October with the podcast, and I'm already in the works of getting things lined out.
Hmm.
Um, Trying to get like people from the last 2 movies and original people too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the whole month I'm trying to have an episode every day.
Oh, yeah. And I will say all the time, like, because at the end of the day, I just love movies. Like, yes, horror is my favorite, but at the end of the day, just movies in general, like I love. Like my favorite movie of all time is not a horror at all whatsoever. It's like an underground movie with Matthew Lillard called SLC Punk.
Okay.
Um, uh, and it's like I just watch pretty much anything. The only thing I can't really get into is rom coms. It's the only time I'm like kind of bored. But you just stop it. Oh my god, he's
Yeah.
been a pain all day.
Yeah. I feel that. So yeah, that's kind of why I do podcasts and the topics. Why movies over everything for you?
Well, like for me, movies have always been like my comfort place. Because there's always been like the trinity in my life that kind of like keeps me going, obviously not including like my family and friends, but like there's movies, books, and music. Those are the three that always get me by. And movies, it was always just something that I had like to comfort me. It was something that my brother and I bonded over because we would sit and watch movies together and just critique what we liked, what we didn't like. And then, I would play outside as a kid, run around the neighborhood, be stupid, and then the street lights came on. Okay, had to come home, and I just watched movies at that point, and it was just something that was like comforting to me. And it was the same thing with Danny. Like him and I, we both just bond over that. So we try not to stay in like a hold of a specific genre of movies. We try to do like whatever we can. We have a few people who make requests about what movie they want us to do. It ends up being a lot of them being horror movies, only because a lot of people request horror movies. But we try to go into different realms as well.
Yeah, I think like horror movies, there's more to talk about and get into than other movies because there's so much backstory with those, according to the comedies or the action movies. It's like, yeah, there was a lot of explosives and a fight scene, like
Right.
but I like stories and stories on top of a story.
Hmm.
Like I like to rewatch movies 3 times, and every 3 times I watch it, it's like, oh, I didn't see that. Oh, this is new. Oh,
Hmm.
how did I miss this? Like You know, that's why to me horror movies are there for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Like horror movies at the end of the day, there's always just something about them that kind of just makes me happy, especially the suspenseful thriller ones that I kind of just like, I'm on the edge of my seat the entire time. Or even like series like the Haunting of Hill House series where I'm just like the entire time like, oh my God, what is about to happen?
yeah, that's how I felt about the first Conjuring movie. Very much on the edge of my seat. Scared too. Like I don't get scared easily. But that movie had me spooked because there was a lot of jumps and suspense with it too. And it's like,
Yeah.
whew.
And good acting and good writing in that movie as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I think for me, that's all I got. Before we hop off, if you want to tell my listeners how they can find your page and your podcast, feel free. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, it's called Lizard and Panda Take on Cinema. Lizard is spelled with two Z's because that's how I spell my name. But we are on Instagram to find us there. But we also have different streaming platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, Stitcher. We're on all of those, and you could always just check us out if anybody's interested. Like I said, we talk about any movies just in general because we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into one genre. And we just basically like go into all these details about what we love, what we didn't like about the movies. And we just have a lot of fun with it at the end of the day because we're just, when you put us together, we're just a bunch of goofballs that just like having fun.
For sure. And if you guys ever have like a horror movie and you need like a special guest, I'm totally down to talk about horror movies for sure. That's right up my alley. But yeah, guys, this is and you can find the Sun Pod on Instagram. I got lost for a second. On Instagram at the Sun Pod, all one word. And we have a YouTube channel now, and that is the Sun Pod spaced out. Other than that, just search the Sun Pod and Google and whatever, and everything else will pop up. So yeah. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for tuning in this week, and we will be right back at you next week. All right. Cheers, and thank you so much again.